Picture being cast out from the sole sanctuary you knew as home, utterly bereft of hope and with no one at all to seek aid from. This was the stark reality facing Aisha until fate unexpectedly intervened and she encountered a man of considerable wealth and influence who dramatically transformed her desperate circumstances. Yet, this narrative is not merely one of rescue from hardship. It's a sweeping saga woven with intricate threads of deceit, stunning revelations that challenge everything, and a deep love that arose unexpectedly against all odds. How precisely did Aisha transition from being a humble washhouse attendant, barely noticed by anyone, to something far greater, to a destiny she could never have imagined? Discover her extraordinary journey now. In a small village named Kipera, nestled amongst the hills, where news and gossip traveled with remarkable swiftness, resided a quiet young woman named Aisha. A quiet orphan girl, she possessed a deep sense of responsibility and an honest work ethic that rarely went unnoticed, even if she herself was. Her sole anchor in a world that offered her little security was her humble employment at the local wash house, managed by Adwoa, where she diligently cleaned, pressed, and neatly folded garments for individuals who hardly acknowledged her presence, treating her almost as if she were invisible. Indeed, the modest establishment was more than just her place of work. It was her entire habitation. A simple, worn mat tucked away in a secluded corner served as her humble bed each night, and her entire worldly goods amounted to just one cup and a plate, scarcely filling a small bag. Despite this meager existence, Aisha held a significant degree of gratitude, finding solace in the smallest comforts. "At least I have somewhere to rest," she often murmured to herself, "a roof over my head." One particularly radiant morning, Aisha settled herself onto her mat, consuming a meager portion of moistened gari, her simple, customary meal. Her employer, Kwame, had just opened the shop doors, and the very first customer of the day, an elegantly attired lady in vibrant yellow lace, entered with an air of confident self-importance. Aisha swiftly brushed her hands clean against her worn attire and fetched a small bowl of water to cleanse her face before commencing her strenuous duties. As she walked through the doorway from her corner, her mind focused solely on her imminent tasks. She failed utterly to notice the woman stepping into the shop simultaneously. They collided abruptly, a sudden, jarring impact. "Watch where you're going. Are you blind?" The woman shrieked, a high-pitched, indignant sound, staring in dismay at her garment now soaked with water, her eyes widening in shock and immediate anger. Aisha's heart plummeted instantly into the pit of her stomach. "Oh, my apologies, madam," she stammered, her voice trembling slightly. "I failed completely to see you. Please, madam, allow me to clean it. I will try my best." She reached out timidly to touch the fabric. "Keep your hands off. Don't you dare touch me," the woman snapped, recoiling as if Aisha were diseased. "Do you have any idea the cost of this attire? This filthy creature like you." Aisha bowed her head in shame and humiliation. "I am truly sorry, madam. It was unintentional. A complete accident." "A mistake?" screamed the woman, her face contorted with fury, her voice, sharp and piercing like shards of glass, sliced through the morning air, attracting the attention of those nearby. "Is that how people labor here? No manners, no training at all." Before Aisha could utter another word, the woman swept past her in a fury, with a dramatic swirl of her soaked fabric, and entered the compact office, where Kwame was seated behind his modest desk. Aisha stood rooted to the spot, her hands quivering with fear and disbelief. She could clearly hear the woman's irate voice, raised in a furious tirade. "Dismiss her immediately. Get rid of this clumsy girl," the woman shouted. "If you employ such individuals, I'm taking my patronage elsewhere. And believe me, that will significantly impact your business. I cannot tolerate such negligence. It is utterly unacceptable." Kwame, a balding gentleman with weary eyes, looking older than his years, attempted to soothe her, his voice placating. "Madam, please, let us not escalate this unduly. Surely, we can resolve this calmly. She is a diligent worker, despite this minor incident." "I do not care. I absolutely insist, the woman shrieked back. Unless you dismiss her instantly, I am finished with your establishment. My business is concluded here. And do not forget, my fiancé is one of your most significant patrons. You cannot afford to lose him. Kwame let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders slumping slightly. He walked out of the office and summoned Aisha, his voice barely above a whisper. She stepped forward tentatively, her heart hammering as though it might burst against her ribs. Aisha, he said softly, his gaze averted. I do not know how to say this. This is difficult. Oh, please, sir. It was unintentional. It was a simple accident, I swear. Aisha, he interrupted gently but firmly. You have been a commendable employee for a long time, but I cannot afford the loss of a client like her. Her business is crucial to my livelihood. Regrettably, you must depart. I have no other choice. Aisha sank to her knees in utter despair. Oh, sir, please do not do this. Have mercy. I have no place to go. Nowhere else in the world. This is where I reside, where I sustain myself. It is my home, my life. Please, sir, do not cast me out into the streets. Kwame regarded her with sympathy, a pained expression on his face, but he shook his head negatively, regretfully. Aisha, I am sorry. My options are limited. I truly wish I could help. The elegantly attired woman stood at the threshold, observing the scene, a cruel, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. That should teach you to mind your path, you insignificant girl, she said, departing with an air of triumph, her head held high. Aisha sat on the floor, tears coursing down her cheeks, her body racked with sobs. Her world had just collapsed around her in a devastating heap. Where would she turn? Who would take her in? How would she subsist? Without work, without shelter? The day was just beginning, but for Aisha, it already felt like the culmination, the absolute end of everything she had ever known. Aisha sat on the floor of the wash house, her head buried in her cupped hands, her body shaking with silent anguish. The tears continued to flow uncontrollably, a torrent of despair. She cast one final, pleading glance at Kwame, her eyes wide and filled with desperation. Sir, please, I do not have anywhere to go. I will labor more diligently, work harder than ever before. I will rise earlier, be the first one here. Please, do not cast me out. Aisha pleaded, her voice quivering with emotion. Kwame sighed deeply, massaging his forehead, as if the weight of the decision was heavy upon him. Aisha, this is not a matter of your diligence. Your work ethic is not the issue. You know I value your efforts. You have been a good worker, but that woman is my most valued customer. Her business is vital. Her loss would detrimentally impact my livelihood, could ruin me financially. I am sorry, but you must depart. There is no other way. But where will I go? What am I supposed to do? Aisha cried. This is the sole place I possess. It is my only refuge. How will I eat? How will I survive? Please, sir, show me mercy. Please, find it in your heart. Aisha, he said, averting his gaze from her tear-filled eyes, unable to bear the sight of her distress. My decision is final. There is nothing more to discuss. You cannot stay here anymore. You must leave now. Simply gather your belongings, what little you have. Aisha felt as though her world was collapsing into an irreversible ruin. She looked around the tiny shop where she had resided for the past 2 years, a place she had cautiously come to call home. It offered little, but it had been her refuge. Meager though it was, it provided a fragile sense of security. She was destitute of family, friends, and funds, utterly alone and penniless in the world. That evening, possessing nothing more than a modest satchel containing her clothes, clutched tightly in her hand, Aisha wandered directionless through the pathways, with no destination in mind, propelled only by despair. The sun had long descended, casting long shadows, and the village was hushed, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart, save for the infrequent sound of passing vehicles, breaking the oppressive silence. She felt utterly unseen, a ghost in her own village, as though existence had forgotten her, leaving her adrift. As she wandered, she observed an unfinished structure on the edge of the Kivu district, a skeletal frame against the darkening sky. The walls stood tall, like a promise of completion that wasn't yet fulfilled for her, but apertures for doors and windows were absent, leaving gaping holes that offered no protection. She glanced within hesitantly and saw a level expanse of concrete blocks, littered with debris. It offered little safety, a cold, hard refuge, yet it surpassed sleeping exposed on the thoroughfare, infinitely better than the vulnerability of the open street. Aisha entered, placed her bag upon the chill surface, and seated herself, seeking a moment of respite. "Almighty, please grant me aid," she murmured, her voice barely audible. She lay upon the ground, using her fabric wrap as cover, trying to ward off the encroaching chill. The night stretched long and felt cold, a seemingly endless expanse of darkness and uncertainty, but she remained wakeful, her mind consumed by apprehensions, tormented by worries about the immediate future and the daunting challenge of survival. The sound of voices roused Aisha from her restless slumber the next morning. She sat up abruptly, startled, her heart leaping into her throat, to see a contingent of men entering the structure, a group of burly men carrying implements like shovels, picks, and other tools, and wearing protective headgear, their hard hats glinting in the morning light. They halted in their tracks when they saw her, their work momentarily forgotten. "Who might you be, and what is your purpose here?" one of the men inquired, his tone firm yet not harsh, neither hostile nor overly welcoming. Aisha rose to her feet, her hands trembling with a mixture of fear and a desperate hope. "Oh, please, sir, I offer my sincerest apologies," she began, her voice shaky. "I had no intention of trespassing. It was merely out of desperation. I recently lost my employment. I have nowhere else to go, and held out hope for the chance to work here. I heard there might be opportunities. Please, I am capable of labor. I am not afraid of hard work. Allow me to assist with the construction. Let me try. I will undertake any task, no matter how difficult." The men exchanged swift glances, a silent conversation passing between them, some expressing doubt with a shake of the head at the very idea, skepticism evident on their faces. "This is not suitable work for women," one stated. "It requires physical strength. It involves arduous labor, lifting substantial blocks, mixing mortar, carrying heavy loads. Are you certain you can manage such demands? Are you up to the challenge?" "I am capable, sir," Aisha affirmed, her voice resolute despite her outward fragility. "I am strong. Strong enough. Please, just grant me an opportunity, a chance to prove myself." The men paused, murmuring amongst themselves, considering her unusual plea. Ultimately, one offered, "You will need to speak with the site manager. He is the one who makes the decisions. He is expected shortly. He should be here any minute now." Aisha nodded quickly. "Thank you, sir, very much. I will await him patiently." She seated herself quietly in a recess of the structure, finding a small, unoccupied spot, observing as the laborers commenced their duties, watching their rhythmic movements. The aroma of wet concrete permeated the atmosphere, a sharp, earthy smell, and the sound of hammering resonated about her, a constant, rhythmic clang. Aisha experienced a faint stirring of optimism, a fragile sprout of hope pushing through the hard ground of her despair. Following approximately an hour of nervous waiting, a tall figure, clad in a white shirt and safety boots, a man whose presence commanded respect, entered the site. His countenance was stern, his features set in a serious expression, projecting an air of someone who tolerated no foolishness, clearly a man of authority and purpose. The laborers swiftly congregated around him, gathering respectfully, explaining Aisha's predicament, telling him about the girl they had found. The man approached Aisha, walking directly towards her, his gaze appraising her from head to foot, a steady, assessing look. "So, you seek employment here?" he stated, rather than asked, his voice low and resonant, a voice that carried weight. "Yes, sir," Aisha replied, standing erect, trying to appear confident. "I have no dwelling place. I am homeless, and require a means of survival, and I need work desperately. I pledge to give my utmost. I will work harder than anyone." The man arched an eyebrow, a slight, skeptical gesture. "This is not a place for triviality. This is serious work. If you prove incapable of handling the work, you'll be dismissed. If you cannot keep up, you'll be asked to leave. Is that clear? Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. I comprehend. Absolutely, sir." "Very well," he conceded after a significant pause, after a moment of silent consideration. "You may commence tomorrow. You can start working with the others." Aisha's face brightened instantly, a radiant smile spreading across her face. "Thank you immensely, sir." "Oh, thank you. May the divine bless you for your kindness." As the workers resumed their duties, returning to their tasks, Aisha seated herself in the corner, the same spot as before. Tears flowed down her face, streaming freely now, this time not from despair, but from a nascent glimmer of hope, the tears of relief and gratitude. The following morning, Aisha began her inaugural day at the construction site, her first true test. The sun beat down fiercely. The heat was intense and unforgiving, and the labor proved far more demanding than anticipated, testing her physical limits. She transported weighty blocks upon her head, each one a significant burden, blended cement with aggregate, the heavy shovels straining her muscles, and retrieved water from a proximate spigot, carrying buckets back and forth. Her arms ached and her legs felt leaden, her body protesting with every movement, yet she persevered, driven by sheer necessity and determination. The laborers observed her with astonishment, exchanging looks of surprise. "My word, this young woman is remarkably robust," one commented. "She's tougher than she looks." Another chuckled in admiration. "Frankly, she's outperforming some of the male workers here. She's got grit." Aisha disregarded their remarks, her focus unwavering, and continued her labor, pushing past the pain. She understood she had no alternative. This represented her second opportunity, a lifeline she had fought for, one she could not afford to jeopardize. She would not let slip away. A week later, the proprietor of the edifice, Jide, the man who owned the entire project, made an unannounced visit without prior notice. An impeccably dressed gentleman, clothed in clean, smart attire, possessing a calm, yet authoritative demeanor, an aura of quiet power, he circumnavigated the site, walking deliberately, scrutinizing the progress, his keen eyes missing nothing. He observed something out of the ordinary, something that immediately caught his attention. In a section of the site, an unusual sight among the male workforce, a young female was transporting substantial blocks on her head. Her attire was marked by concrete stains, her simple clothes bearing the marks of hard labor, and perspiration trickled down her countenance, streaking through the dust, yet she did not cease, working relentlessly. "Who is that girl?" Jide inquired of the site engineer, who stood beside him, indicating Aisha with a slight nod of his head. The site engineer hesitated, then responded, seemingly a little uncertain how to explain. Sir, her designation is Aisha." "That's Aisha, sir. She has been in our employ for approximately a week. She's relatively new." "Why is she engaged in this type of labor? What is she doing handling heavy materials like that?" "This is not appropriate work for a young female," Jide stated, his brow furrowed with concern and perhaps disapproval. "This is far too strenuous and dangerous for a girl her age." The site engineer elucidated Aisha's plight, her lack of a dwelling, that she was homeless, and her earnest pleas to be permitted to work, and how desperately she had begged for a chance. "She is exceedingly diligent, sir. She is an incredibly hard worker. She voices no grievances, never complains, and accomplishes her tasks, and does everything asked of her." Jide shook his head slowly. "This is not correct. This isn't right. Summon her hither. Bring her over to me." The site engineer nodded and gestured for Aisha to approach, obeying immediately. She swiftly wiped her face with the hem of her garment, trying to make herself presentable with a quick, practiced motion, and proceeded towards their location, approaching them cautiously. Good morning, sir, Aisha offered, bowing slightly, a gesture of deference, as she reached them. Morning, Jide replied, his tone benevolent yet resolute, kind but firm. What is your name? Tell me your name. Aisha, sir, she replied, her voice soft. Aisha, why are you undertaking this sort of labor? Why are you doing this kind of heavy work? Are you unaware it is perilous and excessively arduous for someone like yourself? Don't you know how difficult and potentially dangerous it is for a young woman? Aisha lowered her head, her gaze fixed on the ground. Sir, I possess no alternative. I have no other choice. I must secure my survival. I need to earn money to live. Please, sir, do not dismiss me. Don't send me away. I will perform any duty to retain this position. I will do anything to stay here. Jide let out a profound sigh, a heavy exhalation. This is not the sort of existence, the life a young woman like yourself should endure. You cannot persist here. You cannot continue doing this work. I shall confer with the site engineer. I will speak with him. You must cease this labor. You will stop this work immediately. Aisha's heart plummeted again, a familiar, sickening drop. She parted her lips to speak, but words failed her, a wave of despair washing over her. The sun was beginning its descent when the site engineer summoned Aisha aside. His expression seemed heavy, and Aisha's heart sank even before he uttered a word. Aisha, he began slowly, Jide has stated that you cannot continue working here. He explained that Jide felt it was for her own welfare, deeming her too young to be burdened with such heavy tasks. Aisha's chest tightened painfully. Sir, please, I have no other place to go, she implored. I will dedicate myself further to the work, I promise. I do not even mind sleeping here. The engineer shook his head sadly. The decision is not mine to alter. You must depart. I offer my apologies. You know the saying, perhaps? That every setback holds a hidden blessing. I genuinely believe the Almighty will grant you a more favorable opportunity. Tears spilled freely from Aisha's eyes as she gathered her scant possessions and relocated to another incomplete structure that night. As she lay upon the cold concrete floor, Aisha felt an unprecedented sense of isolation. She embraced herself tightly, shivering in the nocturnal air. God, why me? She whispered, her voice trembling. What transgression did I commit to warrant this? But no response came forth. Meanwhile, Jide proceeded to the wash house of Adwoa to collect his freshly cleaned garments. Kwame, the owner, greeted him warmly. A pleasant evening, sir, and welcome back. Good evening, Jide replied, presenting his receipt. While awaiting his items, he glanced around the establishment, his thoughts drifting back to Aisha. Something about her had left a lasting impression, and he could not shake the feeling that she was in distress. Excuse me, he addressed the owner. Do you happen to know a young woman named Aisha? She used to be employed here. The owner's cheerful demeanor faded slightly. Aisha?
Yes.
She encountered a predicament with one of our patrons. The lady was displeased and insisted I dismiss her. It was your intended, Zainab, who demanded her departure. Jide blinked in astonishment. Zainab? Are you quite certain? Indeed, sir. She was exceedingly upset that Aisha accidentally splashed water onto her tire. She even issued a threat to cease bringing her laundry here if I did not discharge the girl. Jide remained silent for a moment. Do you know of Aisha's current whereabouts? The owner shook his head. No knowledge, sir.
She simply departed like that.
I do not believe she had anywhere to go. Jide thanked the owner and took his clothes, but his mind was troubled. Why would Zainab go to such lengths to have a young woman dismissed over something so trivial? And where was Aisha now? As he drove towards his mansion that evening, Jide could not suppress a profound feeling of culpability. He knew he had to locate Aisha, regardless of the time it might take. Several days thereafter, Aisha walked along the verge of a path, her worn sandals offering scant protection to her feet from the rough terrain. She wrapped her arms around herself, seeking any semblance of warmth. The road was quiet, save for the infrequent vehicle rushing by. Suddenly, Brilliant headlamps illuminated the path ahead, and a dark SUV slowed down alongside her. The window descended, and a familiar voice called out, "Aisha." She froze, straining to identify who it was.
It was Jide.
"Sir?" Aisha's voice was hesitant, unsure whether to flee or remain. "What are you doing here at this hour of the night?" Jide inquired, his voice laden with concern. "I have nowhere to turn," she admitted softly, keeping her gaze fixed on the ground. Jide frowned. "Step into the vehicle." Aisha hesitated. "Sir, I would not wish to inconvenience you." "You are not inconveniencing me," Jide insisted. "I cannot leave you in this state. Please enter." After a moment, Aisha climbed into the car. As they drove, Jide posed questions about her life. She recounted her experience at the wash house, her stay in the incomplete structures, and her desperate attempts to survive. Jide sighed deeply. "You are far too young to be enduring such hardships. Come to my residence. I will arrange employment for you there." Aisha's eyes widened. "Your residence? But sir—"
No, but, Jide interrupted gently.
"You require assistance, and I am in a position to provide it. Do not concern yourself." Aisha finally nodded.
"Thank you, sir."
"May the divine favor you." Upon their arrival at Jide's mansion, it was already late. The expansive dwelling was brilliantly illuminated, boasting large windows and a meticulously manicured garden. Aisha could scarcely believe what she saw. As they stepped inside, Zainab emerged from the living area, her eyes narrowing upon seeing Aisha. "Who is this?" Zainab demanded, her tone sharp and accusatory. Jide remained composed. "Her name is Aisha. She will be staying here." Zainab's voice escalated. This unkempt girl in my home? Are you serious, Jide?" "Indeed, I am," he replied firmly. "She is in need of help, and I have resolved to assist her. That is my final word." Zainab threw her hands into the air in exasperation. "Jide, have you lost your senses? Consider what others will say if they see her present." "I am not concerned with the opinions of others," Jide stated, his voice steady. "Aisha will remain. She will be employed here and have a place to rest." Zainab glared fiercely at Aisha, who stood silently, feeling utterly like an unwelcome intruder. "This is not solely your decision, Jide." "It is now," Jide asserted. "She will be residing in the guest chamber." Jide then personally escorted Aisha to her allocated room. The bed appeared sumptuously soft, and there was even a small window adorned with curtains. Aisha sat down slowly, her heart pounding with a mixture of relief and trepidation. As she lay there that night, she could not dispel the feeling of unease. Zainab's displeasure had been palpable and unmistakable, and Aisha sensed that her challenges might not be fully behind her. From the instant Aisha commenced her work within the mansion, Zainab treated her with undisguised contempt. Every minor action Aisha performed seemed to ignite her ire. "Is this the manner in which you sweep? Observe the corner." Zainab snapped one morning, indicating a floor that was already impeccably clean. "I am sorry, madam," Aisha replied softly, retrieving the broom to sweep the area once more. "Apologize to yourself," Zainab hissed, walking away with a disdainful frown. It was not merely the harsh verbal abuse. Zainab ensured Aisha felt unwelcome in every conceivable way. She frequently denied Aisha access to meals, asserting, "This residence is not a charitable institution. If you are hungry, subsist on whatever provisions you brought with you." One evening, Jide returned home earlier than usual and discovered Aisha seated alone in the kitchen, gazing at an empty plate. "Aisha, have you eaten?" he inquired. Aisha hesitated, then shook her head negatively. "No, sir." "Why not? There is sustenance within this household." Aisha lowered her gaze. "Madam instructed that I should not partake." Jide's eyes darkened. He strode purposefully into the living area, where Zainab was engrossed in her mobile device. "Why are you denying her sustenance?" he demanded. Zainab did not even glance up. "I am unaware of what you're referring to." "Do not feign ignorance," Jide stated firmly. "Aisha is employed here to work, not to endure suffering. Go and serve her food immediately. Zainab let out a bitter laugh. You are making this girl excessively comfortable, Jide. However, if that is your wish. Moments later, Zainab placed a bowl of watery soup and a minuscule portion of yam before Aisha. Here, she declared, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Savor it. Aisha's hands trembled as she picked up the utensil. She could not suppress the tears tracing paths down her cheeks. Thank you, madam, she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Zainab offered a derisive smile and departed, leaving Aisha to weep silently over her meager meal. Despite the relentless adversity, Aisha maintained her inherent kindness. She continued performing her duties diligently and discreetly, striving to avoid confrontation whenever possible. One day, Jide returned home after a lengthy workday. The mansion was quiet, and Zainab was nowhere to be found. He attempted to contact her by telephone, but she did not answer. He then recalled she had mentioned attending a social gathering a few days prior. Perhaps she is still at the event, Jide mused as he proceeded to his private quarters. It was exceedingly late, nearing midnight, when Zainab finally returned to the mansion. The loud impact of the door slamming shut startled Aisha awake. Zainab was unsteady on her feet, her cosmetics smudged across her face, and her clothing reeked of alcohol. She barely managed to enter the living area before she doubled over and began vomiting. Aisha swiftly emerged from her room. Madam, are you all right? She inquired, her voice filled with concern. Zainab merely weakly waved a hand and collapsed onto the floor without articulating another word. Aisha quickly retrieved a mop and cleaned the mess, then assisted Zainab to stand. Permit me to escort you to your chamber, madam, Aisha said softly, though it was challenging supporting Zainab, who leaned heavily upon her. Aisha finally managed to get her to the bed and noticed something amiss. Zainab's skin felt unusually warm. Ah, she has a fever, Aisha whispered. She promptly went to the kitchen, procured a basin of cool water, and began gently applying a cloth to Zainab's forehead. After some time, Zainab roused, but instead of expressing gratitude towards Aisha, she regarded her with anger. What are you doing? Why are you touching me? Zainab exclaimed loudly. Madam, you are feeling unwell. I was merely attempting to offer assistance, Aisha explained, still holding the damp cloth. With your unhygienic hands. How dare you make physical contact with my skin? Zainab shrieked. She seized the basin of water and emptied it over Aisha's head, drenching her clothing. Aisha stood there, stunned, her eyes brimming with tears. I was only trying to help, she stated softly. Just then, Jide entered the room. He observed the water on the floor, Aisha standing completely soaked, and Zainab shouting. What is the meaning of this commotion? Jide inquired, a frown creasing his brow. Zainab pointed accusingly at Aisha. She presumes she can touch me with her foul hands. Jide turned towards Zainab, his voice firm. Do you even comprehend your own words? You returned home in this condition, intoxicated and unwell, and instead of expressing gratitude for her attending to you, you are insulting her? How can you exhibit such callousness, Zainab? Zainab attempted to articulate something, but Jide interrupted her. Enough. I wish to hear nothing further from you. He walked over to Aisha and gently took her hand. Accompany me, he said. He guided Aisha to the living area, handed her a towel to dry herself, and seated himself beside her. Do not allow her remarks to wound you, Jide said kindly. You possess a compassionate heart, Aisha. You did not deserve that treatment. Aisha wiped away her tears. I was merely trying to assist, sir. I did not intend to provoke her anger. Jide looked at her and offered a gentle smile. You committed no error. You are superior to her in countless aspects. As they sat together, something warm and unspoken passed between them. Jide found himself constantly contemplating Aisha's kindness, and Aisha felt a profound sense of safety in his presence. It was a moment neither of them would forget. Jide had consistently been a man preoccupied with numerous commitments, consequently paying little attention to the minor details within his household. However, recently, a subtle transformation had occurred. Each evening upon returning home, Weary from his day, Aisha would greet him at the entrance with a welcoming smile. "Welcome, sir. How was your day?" she would inquire gently. Initially, Jide offered only brief responses. It was satisfactory, or busy as usual. But Aisha's genuine interest prompted him to pause. One evening, he confessed, it was stressful. To be candid, far too many meetings. Aisha nodded with understanding. "My apologies, sir. You have been working diligently. Would you perhaps like me to prepare some tea for you?" Jide blinked, surprised. It was such a simple gesture, yet it affected him deeply. "Yes, please. That would be most appreciated." As Aisha disappeared into the kitchen, Jide found himself unable to stop thinking about her. She consistently displayed such composure and respect, even when Zainab was being severe. This contrasted sharply with Zainab, who seldom inquired about his day or showed any concern. Her primary focus seemed to be demanding funds to support her extravagant lifestyle. Over the ensuing days, Jide began to notice more. How Aisha would quietly attend to tasks without needing to be instructed, how she greeted everyone with a smile, how she seemed to possess a lightness that made the mansion feel warmer, even amidst Zainab's perpetual complaining. One evening, as Zainab complained loudly about a trivial matter, Jide found himself tuning her out and glancing towards Aisha, who was meticulously folding garments in a corner. He frowned, realizing he was instinctively comparing the two women. Jide decided to undertake a thoughtful action. After completing his work, he paused at a boutique and selected some dresses, several for Zainab and one for Aisha. Upon returning home, he presented the bags to each of them. Zainab seized hers with a scowl. "What is this?" she inquired, eyeing the bag with displeasure. "A small token for you," Jide replied simply. Zainab barely glanced at the dress before tossing it onto a nearby sofa. Thanks, I suppose." Aisha, conversely, stared at the bag in disbelief. "For me, sir?" "Yes, Aisha. Open it," Jide encouraged. With trembling hands, Aisha drew out a simple yet elegantly designed dress. Her eyes filled with tears as she clutched it tightly to her chest. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice quivering with emotion. "No one has ever presented me with a gift before." Jide smiled gently. "You merit it, Aisha. You have been working with such dedication." Zainab, who had been observing from a distance, suddenly erupted. "What is the meaning of this absurdity?" she yelled. "Why are you procuring gifts for her? Are you attempting to humiliate me within this household?" Jide turned towards her calmly. "Zainab, it is merely a dress. Why are you inflating the significance?" Zainab scoffed. "A dress, indeed. I can discern precisely what is occurring here. You are beginning to favor her over me, are you not? Exercise caution, Jide." Aisha instinctively stepped back, clutching the dress tightly. "I am sorry if I have caused any issue, madam," she said softly. "Be silent," Zainab snapped, pointing an accusatory finger at Aisha. "You believe you are clever, do you? I am watching you." Jide sighed heavily, rubbing his forehead. "Zainab, cease this dramatic behavior. Aisha is now a member of this household, and I shall accord her respect. If you find that unacceptable, perhaps you should reevaluate your attitude." Zainab stormed off, slamming the door behind her, while Aisha remained frozen, tears of happiness streaming down her face. The following morning, as Jide departed for his construction site, a quiet descended upon the mansion. Aisha was engaged in kitchen duties when she heard Zainab's footsteps approaching from behind her. She turned around, but before Aisha could utter a word, Zainab's irate voice cut through the air. "You presume you can simply enter here and spirit my man away from me?" Zainab shouted, her eyes blazing with fury. "You are nothing more than a base girl attempting to purloin what does not belong to you." Aisha recoiled, her heart pounding rapidly. "Madam, Be quiet," Zainab shrieked, stepping closer. "You do not comprehend your station. You imagine that because he acquired a foolish dress for you, you possess some special status. Well, you do not." Before Aisha could formulate a response, Zainab charged into the room where the dress Jide had purchased for Aisha was hanging. With a cruel smile, She seized the garment and strode purposefully outdoors. Aisha followed her, her voice trembling. "Please, madam, desist. That dress holds immense value to me." "Silence your mouth," Zainab interrupted, holding the dress aloft towards a small fire pit. "This is the consequence when you attempt to seize what is mine." Aisha's eyes widened in horror as she witnessed the flames consume the dress. She was paralyzed, tears falling unchecked. "Please do not do this," she pleaded, but Zainab remained relentless. "You will never be adequate for him. I shall ensure it," Zainab sneered. When the dress was completely reduced to ashes, Zainab turned and walked away, leaving Aisha standing there, sobbing uncontrollably. Aisha felt lost, unsure of what to do or where to go. She felt she had lost everything. A week later, Jide was preparing to depart for the construction site when he saw Aisha in the courtyard. He smiled at her and inquired, "Aisha, would you care to visit the construction site today? Some of your former colleagues from the site are present. I am certain they would be pleased to see you once more." Aisha's face illuminated. She had always harbored gratitude towards the laborers at the site. They had displayed kindness towards her, assisting her when she was most in need. Seeing them again would be a wonderful opportunity to convey her appreciation. "Yes, sir, I would be delighted," Aisha replied, her heart racing with anticipation. Jide smiled and walked towards the waiting vehicle, expecting Aisha to follow. Aisha swiftly hurried inside to prepare herself. She wished to appear her best for the reunion. However, when she finally emerged, Jide's smile faded. He looked at her with surprise. "Aisha, why are you attired in that old dress?" Aisha froze, her heart sinking. She could not disclose the truth to him. Not yet, not after Zainab's explicit threats. I am reserving the new dress for a special occasion," she stated quietly, avoiding his gaze. Zainab was positioned in a corner, observing them, her eyes sharp and warning Aisha not to speak. She made a subtle gesture with her eyes, conveying, "If you reveal anything, I will ensure you regret it profoundly." Aisha hesitated. She did not wish to disappoint Jide, yet she also feared provoking Zainab further. She glanced back at Zainab, who was glaring intensely at her. Jide noticed the hesitation in Aisha's eyes. He raised his voice. "Aisha, what is the matter? Enter the vehicle. We are departing immediately." Aisha remained motionless, unsure how to proceed. Zainab was still watching, and Aisha was terrified. But then, Jide perceived Zainab standing in the corner, her eyes filled with palpable hostility. He understood precisely what was unfolding. "Aisha," Jide exclaimed again, his voice firm. "Enter the vehicle, I said now." With a sigh, Aisha walked towards the vehicle. She wished to avoid exacerbating the situation, so she climbed inside and seated herself. "Let us proceed," Jide instructed Aisha as the car pulled away. Aisha looked back at Zainab, who was still watching them with an angry stare. Aisha did not know what awaited her, but she was certain of one thing: Zainab would not cease until she had definitively removed Aisha from the picture. One afternoon, Zainab summoned Aisha to the living area. "Aisha, come here.
Sit down.
Let us converse," she said in a calm, almost unnervingly sweet tone. Aisha was taken aback. Zainab had never before permitted her to be seated on the sofa. She hesitated for a moment, but then walked over and carefully sat down. "Do not be apprehensive," Zainab said, gesturing for her to relax. "Let us simply talk." Aisha sat on the couch, still uncertain about what was happening. Zainab's voice softened as she began to speak. "I acknowledge that I have been harsh towards you since your arrival in this household. I have uttered words I should not have, and I have treated you poorly. But today, I wish to make amends," Zainab stated, looking Aisha directly in the eye. "From this moment forth, I desire to treat you as my younger sister. Please, forgive me for all my past transgressions." Aisha blinked, confused, but then offered a faint smile.
"Madam, hi arbor no resentment."
"We're fine. Thank you for permitting me to stay in your home," she said, attempting to match Zainab's placating tone. For a brief moment, It seemed as though the tension had dissipated. Zainab smiled back, and there was a warmth in her eyes that Aisha had not previously witnessed. "May I request a small favor?" she inquired, her voice gentle. "Anything, madam," Aisha replied, eager to maintain the fragile peace. Zainab smiled. "I am not adept at preparing meals. Could you make some noodles for me?" Aisha's face brightened. She was pleased to do something for Zainab, particularly since things appeared to be improving. "Certainly. I will prepare them immediately." She hurried to the kitchen and cooked the noodles, bringing a bowl to Zainab when they were ready. Zainab looked content as Aisha placed the bowl before her. Then, Aisha excused herself and returned to her room, believing everything was well. A few seconds later, she heard Zainab's voice shouting from the living area. Aisha's heart leaped as she rushed out to ascertain what had transpired. "Madam, what occurred?" Aisha asked, her voice trembling. Zainab was standing, her face contorted with rage. "So, you intend to poison me?" she shrieked. "What transgression did I ever commit against you?" Aisha's jaw dropped in sheer shock. "Madam, I did not add anything to your food. Please believe me," she pleaded, striving to remain calm. Zainab pointed an accusing finger at Aisha, tears streaming down her face. "I witnessed you with my own 2 eyes. You added something to my food. This wicked girl seeks to take my life," she cried out, looking towards Jide as he entered the room. Jide was bewildered, glancing between the 2 women. "What is unfolding here?" he inquired, his voice strained. Zainab cried louder, pointing at Aisha. "Behold her. She is the one. She is attempting to poison me," she wailed, practically shrieking. Aisha stepped forward, attempting to explain her innocence. "Madam, I swear I put nothing in your food. I was merely trying to help." But Zainab was not listening. She continued to shout, her eyes wide with feigned terror. "She is fabricating lies, Jide. She has poisoned my meal." Aisha, desperate to substantiate her innocence, could tolerate it no longer. She seized the bowl of noodles that Zainab had barely touched and, without a moment's hesitation, consumed a large spoonful directly in front of them. "There, do you see?" Aisha said, swallowing the noodles. "There is nothing in your food. I did not poison you." But before she could complete her statement, Aisha felt a piercing pain in her abdomen. She doubled over, clutching her stomach as the room swam around her. "Aisha!" Jide shouted, rushing towards her as she collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. "What is happening? Are you all right?" Aisha screamed in agony, her vision blurring. I do not know. It hurts," she cried, tears streaming down her face. Zainab stood observing Aisha in silence. Then, a cruel smile appeared on her face, and she began to laugh. "I informed you, Jide," she said, almost gleefully. "I witnessed her with my own eyes. She poisoned the food." Jide was in a state of panic. He turned to Aisha, who was now lying on the floor, clutching her stomach, her breathing shallow. "Aisha," he shouted. "Endure. I am transporting you to the hospital." He scooped Aisha up in his arms and rushed out of the mansion, his thoughts racing. He could scarcely believe what was occurring. What had Zainab done? Was this entire ordeal a deceptive scheme? Aisha slowly opened her eyes in the hospital bed. The gentle beeping of the medical equipment was the initial sound she registered. Jide was seated beside her, holding her hand tightly, his face etched with worry. But when he saw her awake, his eyes softened with profound relief. "Aisha, you are conscious." "Thank goodness," he exclaimed, his voice shaky with emotion. Aisha attempted to smile, but was still weak. "What transpired?" she inquired quietly, her voice barely audible. "You collapsed after consuming the noodles," Jide explained. "But you are recovering now. The medical professional stated you will be fine." Aisha closed her eyes again, recollecting the agonizing pain and Zainab's false accusations. She felt tears welling up inside, but she remained silent. Jide regarded her with a serious expression. "Aisha, there is something I must reveal to you." He paused. "I reviewed the cameras in the living area. Zainab perpetrated something dreadful. She orchestrated this entire situation. Aisha looked at him in shock. What meaning do you convey, sir? Zainab. She added something to that food to make it appear as though you were poisoning her. Jide said, his voice growing more resolute with each word. I witnessed it all in the footage. She is the one responsible for this. Aisha stared at him, stunned. But why? What action did I take to merit this? Jide looked downwards, his heart heavy. I do not know, but I shall ensure she faces consequences for her actions. With that declaration, he rose and exited the room, his mind fixed on confronting Zainab. Upon his return to the mansion, he showed no restraint. He walked directly into the living area where Zainab was seated. Gather your possessions and vacate my residence, Jide instructed. What is unfolding? Zainab inquired, feigning ignorance. Do not pretend you are unaware, Jide replied sternly. There is a surveillance camera in this living area, and I have observed every detail. Should I involve the authorities, you will face severe legal repercussions. Therefore, simply depart. With that, Jide turned and walked away, leaving Zainab standing there, trembling. She understood there was no longer any means of evading accountability. Abashed, she quietly collected her belongings and departed, her head hanging low in shame. Days elapsed, and Aisha slowly began to regain her strength. She was back within the mansion, recuperating in the chamber Jide had prepared for her. Jide came to visit her one afternoon, seating himself beside her with a gentle smile on his face. Aisha, he said softly, I simply wish to convey how profoundly I appreciate you. You did not deserve any of the hardships you endured. You are a genuinely good person, and I wish to rectify the situation. Aisha looked at him, still not entirely comprehending the unfolding events. I am simply grateful that I am well, she replied softly. You are more than merely well, Jide continued. I have given considerable thought to your future. You mentioned you aspired to return to your studies, is that correct? Aisha nodded slowly, uncertain as to where his words were leading. Jide smiled, his eyes radiating kindness. I have already communicated with the appropriate individuals, and I have ensured your re-enrollment. I shall assist you with the educational expenses, whatever you require. I shall be here to offer my support. This represents your opportunity to pursue your aspirations. Aisha's eyes widened in disbelief. You are being serious? Certainly I am, he affirmed, his voice firm but warm. Aisha, you are deserving of every opportunity. I hold unwavering belief in you. Tears welled up in Aisha's eyes as she gazed at him, feeling overwhelmed with profound gratitude. Thank you immensely, sir. You cannot comprehend the significance of this to me. There is no need for gratitude, Jide stated, his voice filled with genuine sincerity. You are now family, and family members care for one another. Aisha smiled, experiencing a warmth she had never before known. For the first time in a long while, she felt she possessed a genuine prospect for a future where she could finally be liberated from fear and uncertainty. And with Jide by her side, Aisha knew she could achieve anything. She was no longer alone. One evening, Jide sat in the living area, lost in contemplation. Aisha entered to inquire if he required anything. Her simple smile and gentle voice consistently possessed a calming effect on him. Aisha, he said, looking up at her. Yes, sir, she replied, standing respectfully, her hands clasped before her. Come and be seated, Jide invited, patting the space beside him. Aisha hesitated but ultimately sat down. For a moment, he remained silent, simply observing her. Then he spoke, his voice soft yet resolute. Aisha, you have endured so much, yet you invariably exhibit kindness. You never utter a complaint. Your humility, your inherent strength, it is astonishing to me. Aisha blinked, surprised. Sir, I am simply exerting my best effort. No, it is more than that, Jide countered, his eyes meeting hers. You have transformed my life in ways I did not anticipate, and I believe I have developed feelings for you. Aisha's eyes widened. She was rendered speechless. I understand this is sudden, Jide continued, "but my heart has never been this certain about anything." "Sir," Aisha began, her voice trembling, "you are a gentleman of considerable stature. I am merely—" "Do not utter such words," Jide interrupted gently. "It is not a matter of your origins. It is a matter of who you are. And you, Aisha, are truly remarkable." Aisha lowered her gaze, her heart racing. She was unsure of what to say. "Take your time," Jide said. "But I simply wished you to be aware of my sentiments." Several months later, Jide requested Aisha to join him in the living area. This time, he was not seated. He was standing, neatly dressed, holding a small velvet container in his hand. "Aisha," he began as she entered, her heart pounding with anticipation. "I have reached a decision. I desire for you to become my wife." Aisha gasped. "Sir, are you certain?" Jide smiled. "I have never been more certain of anything in my entire existence. You embody everything I have been seeking." Tears filled Aisha's eyes as she looked at him. "But I do not know how to be a wife. I do not know how to inhabit a world like yours." "We will acquire the knowledge together," Jide said, taking her hands in his. "All that is essential is your presence by my side." Aisha nodded slowly, her heart overflowing with joy and disbelief. "Yes, sir. I will unite in marriage with you." Jide chuckled softly, drawing her into a heartfelt embrace. "No more, sir. Address me as Jide." Their nuptial ceremony was intimate but beautiful. Close friends and family members assembled to commemorate the improbable tale of love. Aisha wore a simple white gown, and Jide could not avert his gaze from her as they exchanged their vows. There was not a dry eye amongst those present. It was a narrative of hope, affection, and redemption. Aisha's life underwent a profound and permanent alteration. From a displaced young woman on the thoroughfares, she became the cherished consort of a benevolent man. Her trajectory served as undeniable proof that kindness and resilience could pave the way for unexpected blessings. Jide upheld his promise to champion Aisha's aspirations. She resumed her education and subsequently established a charitable organization dedicated to assisting young women in need. This narrative imparts a crucial lesson. Life can take unforeseen turns, and irrespective of how challenging circumstances become, kindness, humility, and perseverance will invariably prevail. It serves as a reminder never to evaluate individuals based upon their circumstances, but rather upon the goodness of their hearts. True love is not predicated on wealth, societal standing, or superficial attributes. It is rooted in recognizing the inherent beauty within a person's spirit and standing steadfastly by their side, come what may. To my wonderful audience, what insights did you glean from this story? I invite you to share your reflections in the comments section below. I would be delighted to read your perspectives. If you found pleasure in this tale, please signal your approval with a thumbs up to let me know, and kindly consider subscribing to my channel so you do not miss the forthcoming engaging upload. Thank you profoundly for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my subsequent narrative.